Hey, Ancil here. Hey, here today with my dear friend, Brian Stewart. Brian is an executive with Myriad, and he can explain more. Now, what's your official title, Brian?
Yeah, so I'm a senior SAM or senior strategic account manager. So we partner with our account executives on projects in hospitals, hospital systems, cancer centers, imaging centers, anywhere where they're trying to identify patients at risk for hereditary cancer.
Wow. And how you've been with them for quite a while now? Have you not?
Yes, absolutely. So coming up finishing my 11th year with Myriad, so it's about to start my 12th year. It's flown by.
Wow.
Yeah.
Life goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Oh man. Hey, one of the things we want to talk about today is something that I just really posted about in regards to really how you look online when you're doing these video presentations, and what a difference it makes. And whether you're a doctor talking to a patient, or you're a software technology guy doing or gal doing a demo, or you're talking to a group, or a nonprofit talking to anyone. Any rate, what a difference it makes to be able to. There's some great tips here. Any rate, my buddy Brian Stewart, being no one knows this, by the way, that he was a former TV personality, but actually sports anchor for our local CBS affiliate. And so, at any rate, Brian, you're sensitive about all this stuff and how you look online and whatnot. What do you think about it? We were just talking about engagement with patients and whatnot.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you and I were talking about it. It's really critical, as we're interacting in a new way, in a different way. It's hard to keep people's attention, right? You think about all the distractions, and so being really efficient with these tools, whether it's Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever, the better equipped you are to really engage the person on the other side of the screen, the better chance you have of being successful at whatever it is, whether it's trying to communicate information, communicate an idea, get somebody to buy something, right? I think it's a new skill that a lot of us people maybe don't feel confident in, don't like the way they look on TV, so to speak, on the computer screen.
Right.
So it's to me and to our team and things we've discussed, it's really critical because it's going to be harder to engage our customers and keep them engaged on a screen versus in person.
Absolutely. And I was sitting it was last year before all this COVID stuff hit. It was probably last fall. I was sitting in a group meeting. Actually, the folks we were actually, part of them were not in this country. We were sitting there having this chat. And as I looked around the screen, there was one guy that stood out, and I was like, wow. Of course, it was the marketing guy, and the communications guy. And so I went back after we had our meeting, and most of those rest of them were tech guys, and they're programmers and whatnot, and everybody's looking like this, somebody's looking like this, and and I see this all the time. But I went back to him and I said, what do you do? What do you, and so I got some tips from him. I mean, it's just almost like I almost hate to say this, like a TV production, to be well lighted, that people can hear you, and that you're looking forward. And it's amazing that you're not looking down. You're sitting here looking down on somebody. It's just crazy. At any rate, it matters. It matters.
Well, it does. And you and I were talking about earlier. There are memes and there are all kinds of spoofs of what kind of Zoom person are you? And there are those who are in the shadows where you can't see their face. There are those whose hair is, I don't have to worry about this, but whose hair is going sideways or straight up. And there's so many things that I think can hinder visually. And, I'm thinking about this, a great way, one of the, I don't know how many of all the tips you've got, but one of the things you can do, you can record a Zoom. So it's a great practice to create a presentation and record yourself doing it. And then really just be critical. Again, none of us really like the way we look sometimes or like the way we sound or whatever. But if you record yourself and play it back, you mentioned the TV days. We used to do that all the time. We would record what we did and then we would watch it and go, okay, my hands were all over the place and they were distracting, or I was twirling a pen and, doing this. There are all these things that sometimes you don't even know you do. And so just record yourself on Zoom, create a presentation, give it, and then watch it back. And to me, that can be extremely valuable to kind of get an idea of what is distracting, but also maybe what is appealing. You go, hey, I like it when I'm engaged and looking forward and not staring at something else, because you can tell when somebody's on their phone. So I think those things are really, those are the little things, but you really have got to handle that, because you'll lose your audience in a hurry.
Oh, I was absolutely and spot on. And as I was talking to this communications guy, really just sharp guy, and he was just saying, we have got, and again, this is before all the COVID, and this is before we all, just doing online presentations, and and I was just trying to get some of his ideas and what he would, he did a kind of creative background, and of course you can do that. I don't think that matters as much as where your eyes are, and where you're looking, and how people can see you.
Right.
The other day I was on, I was working with somebody, and I snapped a picture because he was up against a blind. The sun was coming in, and I mean, it's just the way it worked out. You could not see his face, and I snapped a picture of it and sent it to him after our chat. And I said, you might want to at least turn around,
Right.
And those little things mean a lot, and especially if you're here trying to do, trying to sell something, trying to connect with your folks, that they'll hear you, and what can set you apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. Early on in all of this COVID thing with one of our team calls, we were all just burnt out on Zoom. We had done, especially the first couple of weeks, had done so many Zooms. And one morning I just needed a change of scenery, and I went to the back porch and got in my hammock. It was a team call. It wasn't anything formal,
right?
But I'm in my hammock, and somebody texts me and they're like, no matter what you say, I can't take you seriously because you're in a hammock. So, and visually, there were probably 8 or 10 of us on the call. I can't remember, but if you're looking at sort of the Brady Bunch image and you see everybody lined up and then you see one guy in a hammock, visually it's distracting, right? So I haven't taken any more calls from my hammock. I do sometimes go on the back porch, but it's a pretty nondescript background.
Yeah.
But it's funny, and you think about it later. I wouldn't do a customer call that way, but
sure.
It was kind of, to your point, all those things matter, right? They all make a difference.
They do. I thought it was hilarious that one of my family members, I won't say who it is, was on a team call the other day. His initials are Ancil Lee the fourth.
Yeah.
And they said his boss, the team leader said, "Hey, everybody, turn your camera on." And so you got people working from home in their pajamas and whatnot, and their hair, like you said, their hair going. That was a great wake up call. I love that. So at any rate, I won't say what. I'm sure Ancil looked great. At any rate, but it's important, and one of the things I had written these tips because I think they're important, and and if you can figure this out, it'll get you far down the road and not be distracting if you're trying to get your message across.
Yep. Agree. Ancil, I think another thing when you kind of talk about the technology, there are things that I know Zoom has improved on and made better, but there are things like live polls that you can do, and sharing your screen. There's nothing probably more frustrating to people than when someone is leading a meeting and they go, okay, let me share my screen. Meanwhile, 3 minutes later, you're still not looking at their screen and they're trying to figure out what to do. So again, I think, understanding the technology,
Yep.
how to use polls, how to use chats, how to assign tasks to people. There's so many, I'm sure your tips, you probably have a favorite, but there's so many things that if we can just tweak a little bit, you really set yourself apart and get your point across.
Agreed. Totally agree. And that's really kind of what my tips talk about. I mean, really just basic stuff like that is really being prepared, and planning ahead before you jump on a call. So, yeah, any other thoughts you have? Listen, I just appreciate you taking time today.
Sure. Now, I think the only other thing, and this is something that we've emphasized, and I've emphasized with the people that I work with, is I hope we have one wave and that's it. But I really believe that there's probably going to be other things that come. And so if we don't get good at this now, you're going to be behind in 2 months or 3 months or whatever the time frame is to where you have to re-engage this way. And honestly, some of my executives and people that I deal with, I have meetings coming up where they just don't want to risk anybody else coming in. And so I foresee a lot of meetings taking place this way for longer than maybe any of us want, because
Right.
we do value the in-person, read body language, read facial expressions in real time is hard. But I think those of us who are going to have to engage this way have to get good at this, or you're going to be, whatever business you're in, you're going to get left behind by those who have figured this out and have mastered it to a level where they can have a really good interaction this way. And,
Yep.
and for me, I cover 5 states. I'm not always available when my folks need me because I'm, over here, over there. So this is also going to, I believe, really make me more accessible and more acceptable by customers who have gotten used to using us as well, where in the past they maybe weren't comfortable with that. So I think it's really going to expand my reach to my customers in a time frame that works best for them. So I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I think about, I've spent most of my career, on the road, driving all over the place.
Yep.
And I, don't do that much anymore. And now I certainly don't do it, during this time. But I just say this is what a great tool. As a matter of fact, it's really transformed my business probably in the last 2 years of using this. But getting even, can I get better at it? Absolutely. And I just think it's important. That's anyway, the reason I share. And I appreciate you taking time to talk about it. And hopefully it's helpful to somebody.
Absolutely. And again, I think we got to get better at it. Keep working on it. Always continuous improvement, right? How do I get better and find something that nobody else uses that catches the eye of my customer or, my colleague, where they sit up and pay attention, and instead of, lean back, they're leaning in, to go, wait a minute, what was that? I want to see that again. And not gimmicks per se, but things that catch people's attention and get your point across.
Absolutely. And one of the tips I put on there is be where you are. So don't be, texting and, you're having a conversation. Stop. If you need to have a conversation, people understand, my wife calls and my kids call. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I got to take this.
Right.
On hold for just a minute. Let me take this call. But be where you are. And don't be, again, it's so easy, especially in a group setting, to, be over there doing, working on email or texting or not paying attention. And all of a sudden you get called on, that'll wake you up.
Yes.
But the last thing that I will say here that somebody had written today, my buddy Mark Winchester, who's executive senior VP at Frisia. He posted this on my LinkedIn today. He taught me a great deal about this, about writing personal notes, handwritten notes. He said that people get a hand or any personal correspondence maybe once every, he said about 2 months.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
and that's something. So once every 2 months, you get you get someone sending something to you personally, a personal correspondence, not electronic. So how valuable that is. He was the king. He is the king. He used to write me notes when I closed a deal or whatever. And I still have those. I still have those notes. And I told, matter of fact, I told, I'd showed him, I'd written him and reconnected with him that, that I still had his note just saying, attaboy, or, way to go,
Yeah.
Ann, you know. So those things make a difference. So his post today was, have digital communication, but follow up with an analog, the old handwritten note. So anyway.
That's great. That is great advice, because you're right. If I look on my desk, there are very few things I have that are handwritten, but I've kept those for that very reason, right? You just don't get them very often.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice.
Yes. Well, and I try to do that as often as I can. Well, listen, thank you for taking time today. I value your friendship most of all, but your thoughts and your expertise. You're most successful, and I appreciate you sharing today, B.
Well, hey, no problem, Ancil. Same here. Value your friendship, and I'm glad you thought it to talk to me. And I haven't read the article yet on your tips, so that's where I'm headed right after this.
Well, well, hey, sounds good. If you got anything else, please add to. But
Absolutely, absolutely.
But well, hey, listen, thanks, and let me thank everyone for joining us today. And hey, if you've got anything you'd like to, any question for me or for Brian, message me directly here on the media. Go to my LinkedIn page or go to our website at ancillea.com and leave me a message, and I'll respond just as quick as I can. So, at any rate, thanks again, Brian, and you guys take care.
Thanks, Ancil.